during the live stream.
Brilliant.
And then it's got
Phone off.
right. Great. So I think we're live now. So it's 10:30, and welcome everyone. I'm here with David Bailey in our week 2 session. So we are running, for those of you who haven't seen our previous session, a live stream on YouTube last week, we're running a series of 4 live sessions, David Bailey and myself.
Morning.
They're in week 2. So in a minute, I'm going to introduce David Bailey, and the purpose of this session is about sharing David's second deal with you guys and sharing all about the numbers, the structure, and how we started it and the history of it. So David, firstly, big welcome to our week 2.
Thank you. Morning, Manny.
Morning. And David, so over to you. Would you be able to share with us a little bit about the deal that you're going to talk to us about and how it all started, and take us through the process? And if it's okay with you, I'll maybe stop you on a sort of right timing to get questions. And would that be okay with you?
Absolutely, yeah. Just butt in any time if you've got specific questions or anything you want me to cover off. So yeah, basically, I'm going to share my screen and show you some pictures, because I always think it's a lot easier when you can sort of see pictures of something. And start the presentation here. Here we go. So hopefully you can see that on your screen now. It's a fairly slightly scruffy looking plot of land on the end of a row of houses.
It is actually.
Yeah. So this is one of the earliest plots I identified, and it was so easy to find, but not many people would find it because it was down a cul-de-sac, and it's literally just not a road you'd go down unless you knew someone down that road or something like that. So it was there, absolutely in plain sight for anyone to see if you went down that road. I mean, as you can see, looking at the plan, there it is. It's not really clear why this was never built on. This sort of cul-de-sac of houses was built out perhaps in the 70s, and it's not really entirely clear why this was not built out at that stage. But as it turns out,
someone's loss is your gain.
Well, exactly. Yeah, there's always a sort of a story behind it. The gentleman who lived here at number 35 actually owned this, and he used it as a small holding. Really, just he sort of grew things on it. Maybe it's just.
Oh wow! So it was allotment. That's probably why nobody sort of thought to approach them, because they thought they're using it for a purpose, right?
Well, that's it, yeah. And I guess maybe he, I think his family back, sort of 70, 80, 100 years ago, actually sold off some of the land that then became this close. So I think he was in a position to hold a little bit, and maybe he just decided they wanted a bigger garden. I don't know. But anyway, he'd always had it in his head that when he retired and moved from this house to the seaside, which was his plan, that he would sell this bit of land. That was his pension. That's what he called it, his pension, basically. And I just happened to write to him at the right time.
Absolutely.
It wasn't perfect timing, actually. I wrote to him, and the letter sat in his drawer for quite a while. But I sort of followed up, which is one of the techniques we talk about, because it's very important to follow up with the letters, so that you're not just one letter coming through the door that gets forgotten. You've got to follow up and repeat the letters. And obviously I'd sort of lodged in his mind enough for him, when he was ready to move on, to give me a call.
So when was this roughly, just get an idea of timing?
So this was back, I think I first got in touch with him in 2017. And we spent a bit of that year sort of negotiating, going back and forth, agreeing contracts. It wasn't a particularly, he wasn't in a particular hurry. He wanted to get, a good price for the land, but he wasn't in a particular hurry, which helps, because that's the kind of vendor you need to allow you to the time to get planning. So yeah, first sort of met in 2017. By early 2018, we had the planning. We were under contract. We had planning, and then we started building in mid 2018.
So just remind me then, you secured it obviously once he agreed a price, and then You exchange contracts subject to planning?
Yeah, we exchanged subject to planning. Yeah.
And did you have in the planning, did you have subject to 2 houses, or was it just a generic subject to?
Yeah, we did. We specified that. He thought it's always often the way with vendors, they think that the land is worth more than it is, and they think you can get more on it than you can. He thought we might be able to get 3 on. He'd been advised on price by agents who, as you know, will always say something.
Finger in the air.
Exactly. Yeah, they pull out the third rule, as if that's gospel. But anyway, we got to a figure that he was happy with. Two houses. We originally went in for planning for 2 semi-detached houses. Learned a little bit along the way on this one. I'll flip through. This is what we went in for planning for first. So nice houses, kitchen, diner downstairs, living room, hallway, then upstairs, 3 nice bedrooms.
Yeah, 3 good sites. And it's not even a box room, so it's 3 double bedrooms actually.
Yeah. This one's a bit on the smaller side.
But it's still 9 square meters.
Very, very decent size, and obviously the master bedroom gets an ensuite. But what we actually then did was said to ourselves, well, actually, we put a side alley down this side and a side alley down this side. Why don't we just split them, move this house across to the left, and have an alley down the middle? Then you've got 2 detached houses instead of 2 semis. Which are going to be a bit more valuable. So
I mean, that was a fantastic bit of tweak, just a small minor tweak, but it changes the value of the property. Like what, by how much? £50 per square foot type thing?
Yeah, it's a good question actually. I think we definitely added probably 50,000 in terms of end value just by being detached.
Amazing, isn't it? That's a huge uplift from just this changing it. Do you say change the separation of the houses, was rather than having it on either side, you had it in the middle?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and obviously there's slight increased construction costs because you need 2 sets of footings and 2 end walls, but it wasn't. It was certainly worth doing. Put it that way.
Fantastic. And is that something that your builder suggested? Is he the builder that you do a joint ventures with normally?
Yeah, so this was a joint venture with my builder. Yeah, so we did this one together and split the profits at the back end.
So typically with the builder, if you don't mind me asking, do you put the so let's say you get bank funding and whatever else you need over and above that, do you guys put an equal amount, or is it like a different split on different projects?
Yes, so it's 50-50. Yes, 50-50 money going in, and then obviously that makes life an awful lot easier at the back end because it's just sort of 50-50 coming out. And
he builds to cost then, presumably.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
So you have a transparent open book policy, and you know exactly what he's going to make. I mean, what it's going to cost.
Yeah, that's it. It's all priced up front, at cost. So you've got a yardstick to measure to. So obviously there are bits and pieces that happen along the way that do cost more. Some cost less. Unfortunately, it rarely goes that way. But at least you've got something to measure against. You can have a sensible conversation. Right, hang on. Something happened on this one where, for instance, we didn't properly cost the stone lintels, for instance, that we put in. So you can have a conversation about that. So actually, that's going to have to come out of the contingency.
Quick question on the numbers, if you don't mind me asking, David, is how much did you buy this plot for?
So we bought the plot for 290.
Yeah, perfect.
And
build costs?
Build costs were. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and put my numbers back up because I've got the numbers handy. So we were all in for about 700 on this one. That was so everything, including the site purchase, including all the build costs, all the utility connections, all the finance costs,
finance as well.
Yeah, including the finance. Yeah.
So you think you're going to have the build roughly at about 300 grand then, because 290 plus stamp and everything, which means so it's about right, isn't it? 300 grand I'm talking about just the build element, because then you have the finance, professional fees, blah blah blah, utilities and stuff.
Yeah, which all add up on this one. I mean, the utilities, we had to come out into for every single utility, we had to come across the road. All the utilities, for some reason, were on the other side of the road, and that does push up your build costs quite a lot because they have to do a road closure. So every single utility had to come across the road, and they all came at different times, even though we tried to get them to coordinate and come at the same time. So those costs were unexpectedly high. But all in all, yes, we made a good profit, around 160,000, I think, off the top of my head, in total off the back of that project.
And if you don't mind me asking, how much cash did you and your builder together put into the deal? I'm just trying to get a feel of a cash on cash return.
Yeah, so funny enough, the numbers are very similar. We put in about 150 cash, so we made just over 100%.
So you doubled over 110%, really?
Yeah, exactly. Which is, and I've talked about this with you before on the, some of the presentations we've done. The fact that you don't have to put your money in until you buy that site, and you've already got planning at this stage, and you're all ready to go. You're ready to sort of hit the ground running and put a spade in the ground. Means that your cash on cash return is massively increased. If you contrast that with buying that plot of land speculatively, then going through the planning process, holding that land all the time, and then only after you've got planning and pulled all your drawings together for building regs, etc., then you start building. So
you get funding on the uplifted value of the land, the building and the land, whereas people, and also David, another point I think is banks are not really lending on speculative planning anyway. So unless you're a cash buyer, fair enough, then you can do it, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's still a risk. Even if you're a cash buyer, you're putting your money on the line, your investors' money on the line. I wouldn't be comfortable in doing that with investors' funds particularly, and certainly not mine. I think we've got to be more, I'm sure pretty much you're the same. I'd be more careful with investors' funds than I would with my own,
Yeah, that's it. I think if you see an amazing piece of land, you might be willing to take the risk if it's your own money. But really, the value of land is as well as I do, is so pegged to the value of the planning that goes with it. So it is a risk buying something that doesn't have planning.
Absolutely, great. So then that was the build cost, and then what was the end result then? Have you got any photos that we can have a look at?
Yeah, let me just pull that up again. Bear with me. Here we go. Yeah, so that was the floor plans. That was the progress. Obviously, sort of foundations and block and beam floor going in down the bottom there. That's sort of up to sort of first floor there, and then roofs going on there. Then
you wouldn't think that you could get two houses. Looking at that plot initially, doesn't come across that sort of, you know what I mean? It just looks like a decent piece of plot. You probably could get one house on it, or it doesn't look like a big enough plot for two detached houses, funnily enough.
Yeah, no, I mean, they weren't huge, 100 square meters internally each, so sort of 1,078 feet.
And the plot size roughly, David? The plot size?
I think we're about 400 square meters on that one. Yeah, so
that gives us a good idea, and people who are listening here on this call, to say, that sort of minimum plot size would get you potentially two houses, be it smaller ones.
Yeah,
but less, a great scheme that you've got looking over there, actually.
It's all about context. Obviously, this was quite it was a close of mainly terraced houses. So obviously, in that context, you are looking at matching some of the density of development of what's already there. Obviously, if you're looking at a big road of detached houses, then you're not likely to get a sort of small terrace of 3 or 5 in. It's just out of character. But here they kind of fitted in. There was no overall character that said they had to be detached or semis or terrace. There was a mix of everything on the street. And
you managed to get some good amenity space. So you've got a great looking interiors there as well. So did you have an interior designer, or did you do them yourself?
We did that all in-house. My colleague Julie is very good at all that sort of stuff, so we ended up doing that in-house actually. Kitchens were from Magnets, some nice quartz worktops there, and then we sourced all the furniture from a range of different suppliers, which don't have to cost the earth, but as you can see, we think they did look really, really nice. And I have to say, doing a show home really did help the sales process
I mean, honestly, David, they look lovely. And just a quick question, did you sell these in the end?
Yes, both sold on. Yeah.
And if you don't mind me asking, how much did you sell them on for?
So they both sold for same amount, 430,000. So we were at 860 total GDV.
Brilliant. So purchase price, for those who are just joining us now, purchase price 290. Obviously, professional fees and everything, including bill cost 700,000. Cash in the deal between you and your builder, your JV partner, was 150,000.
Yeah.
Profit was 160,000. And the GDV was 430 into times 2 for each of the detached houses. That's 860. So I'm going to put all these numbers into the chat later. But I think you've got a really incredible deal here. And how long did it take to sell?
That was probably a slight fly in the ointment. It took a bit longer to sell than we'd liked.
Because the market was stagnant generally, the quieter end of the market?
It was a bit slow. There's always that sort of dynamic between pricing and speed, isn't there? And we'd sort of had in our minds, to be fair, our original appraisal said 435 to sell each house. So we, both sold for 430, not a million miles off that 435.
Not at all. I think it's a very close price. But I think you said you just stuck to that price and you wanted to achieve it. So you didn't mind waiting a little bit longer for that.
Yeah. It's a good question, though, to be honest, whether we'd be better off, once the finance costs had stacked up towards the back end of that, whether we'd been better off taking sort of 5K less, a couple of months earlier.
So you did have offers, but not quite at the 435 level.
Yeah, that's it. But I mean, the Help to Buy helped an awful lot on this, to be honest, because they're brand new homes. Obviously, we were able to use the Help to Buy scheme, and in the end, both houses went to people who were first-time buyers. They were just coming out of rental accommodation, and to be able to buy a house with fully furnished, effectively, because we sold the show house as it was.
They both were show homes?
Only one, actually. Only one,
Yeah.
but then did furnish the other one as a sort of a bit of a sort of a sweetener, really.
Yeah.
Because
brilliant. I think they look really, really nice. Have you got any other photos to show us?
That's it on this one, actually. Yeah.
But honestly, David, I think it's a great deal, actually. And you, was it 2019 you sold them in?
Yeah, 2019, yeah.
Well, it was a very slow market, David. You and I both remember it was the whole Brexit was completely in the, you know what I mean? It was with the tick of Brexit negotiation and people were just not doing anything. It was a very, very stagnated market.
Yeah, that is the issue with sort of bringing something to the market, isn't it? When it arrives at a point in time and you have to sell it then, it's no good looking back now saying, oh, wow, the market's amazing now. You have to sell it when it comes to the market.
That's the risk we take as developers, right? Because we're not going to be able to judge the market when the houses are ready for either sale or rental. And that's the risk we take. But that's where we get rewarded. Making 110% return on your cash, I think, is no mean achievement. And, it was a straightforward method you followed, writing to the vendors. And I think it's an incredible deal. I've learned a lot. Hope you have as well. We have a few people who've joined us, and I'm trying to, hi, Avi, hi, Chani. I'm just sort of welcoming a few people on the call. If you've got any questions, I'm just going to ask them to, please feel free to ask questions. So how are you finding the market in general? While we wait for some questions to be answered, how are you finding, finding deals? What's your pipeline looking like?
It's looking really good, actually. Yeah. So I had a really busy year in 2019 with 3 projects we sort of pushed through then. So I got very, very busy with actually delivering the projects and probably didn't do quite as much of the sourcing as I should have done. So it's taken a little while to pick that back up again. But no, it's actually now getting really, really busy. So I've sort of got 4 different deals in different stages of the process. One's due to go on site February next year, and then the other 3 will will follow on from that.
So are they in planning stages or the other 3?
One's being purchased now. Then the other 2 are in legals at the moment. So
your legals as well, right? So you're imminent, basically.
Yeah. Yes. one's quite a straightforward refurb. Actually, it's not actually not actually subject to planning, which is unusual for me. I do prefer subject to planning, but this one actually came to me. It was just it's a straightforward refurb. So in some ways, I'm looking forward to not having to go through planning for a change. It's literally just get out the house and refurb it. So that's one that actually should probably happen before Christmas at this rate. So that's a bit different. That's not my usual sort of bread and butter, but it was an opportunity I couldn't say no to.
Well, if it comes to you, then you've got to take it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then the other two are in legals to sort of agree contracts at the moment. Then we'll go into this whole planning process. So they will sort of hit the ground sort of probably early to mid next year.
Fantastic. So you've got a great pipeline. We've got a question here, so I thought we'll take it. It's from Vaseem. Hi, Vaseem, and welcome. What are the current challenges you have been facing? So if I may start off, and then I can hand it over to you. I think for me, I'm getting a really good steady flow of deals, actually, much like yourself, David. For me, the challenges are appraising the deal, making sure that it stacks, but also then finding the right investors with the deal. So, managing both a deal pipeline alongside an investor pipeline, because Romy and I sort of made a point to start using more and more investor funds in our deals, because like I know you've sold a few, but generally what we've done, David, in the last 2 or 3 years, we've tend to keep our developments. So our equity is pretty much in the developments, as it were. So we don't want to be refinancing our portfolio to a much higher level. We're at about 65% loan to value right now, which we're comfortable with. So it gives us a decent cash flow. But anything over and above that, it squeezes your cash flow, but it makes you a little bit more vulnerable as well, especially with the market. At the moment, there's a mini boom in the market, and we all know that. But that might change on where we go with the big B negotiation and furlough scheme ending, if stamp duty doesn't get extended. So all those things will affect the market in 2021, and we want to be in a comfortable situation. So I'd say my challenges are very much on finding, being able to do all these deals, because I've got literally 2 right now that I'm costing and doing appraisals on. One of them's end of offers. It's not a direct to vendor, that one, but a friend of mine brought the deal to me, and she's done exactly the same deal about 10 doors down on the same street. So bought a derelict house, went for planning, knocked it down, and built just another single dwelling, but a luxury dwelling. So it's in a very sort of nice area, very upmarket area, where there's only detached houses. So on this plot that we've seen, it's an open market. So that's what I'm saying. Open market has a fair share of challenges, because they've got 20 bidders.
Wow.
And they've gone over the asking price already. So, this is what I'm trying to, show and tell the viewers, that going direct to vendor, as the one that you've just shown us, and there is another vendor meeting I've got next week, as I mentioned to you as well, is much more, puts you in a better, stronger position. I had a direct to vendor meeting yesterday as well on a hotel site, and they're looking to do a joint venture with us. So that's another interesting deal of a scene that we're looking at. It's a large hotel, and they've already done a pre-app on that for 14 luxury apartments. So they want us to come in as developers, bring our experience in, bring the funding in from a development, from a bank, and they will provide the land. So it'll be interesting to explore what funding opportunities are there. But again, JV, going direct to vendor, again, gives you those opportunities to JV with the vendors as well, right? Because the biggest cost, and David, if you would agree or not, is the acquisition cost.
Yeah.
Because banks will typically fund 100% of the developments, but they'll only fund between 50 to 60% typically on acquisition. And when the market is the way it is right now, where it's up and down, and although, yes, I know it's in a mini boom, but it's uncertainty around it, they do go low on the acquisition. They want you to put more equity into the deal, and then you have to obviously come up with more money and more capital. So I'd say that's my point. So David, over to you then. Where are your challenges at the moment?
I think it's, direct to vendor is a fantastic way to find sites, and I say it's very much my preference. You do have to sort of put a fair number of leads out there, though. To get the leads, you have to put an awful lot of letters out there. I think that's the challenge I'm finding, is that, you know, because of the market the way it is, you know, people do have high expectations of what their property is worth, you know, and if you can't sort of meet those, then, you know, it's, well, I've tried on the market though. So, you know, I have had a lot of conversations in the last few months that haven't actually gone anywhere. But, you know, as with anything, it's a numbers game. You've got to be sort of resilient, be persistent, keep going, in the knowledge that, you know, if it's the right vendor and the right circumstances, then you can make it work.
And, you know, it's not just the volume, right? Because how many deals do we need to do in a year? Actually, David, if you want, you can stop sharing your screen if you like.
Sorry, yeah, let me do
What I was going to say was, how many deals as SME developers or investors we want to do? 1, 2, or 3, right? We're not going to, otherwise we end up overstretching ourselves. So to get the 1 or 2 deals that you need, how many letters do you think they should be sending out every week?
Ideally, if you can get yourself to a place whereby you've got, you know, a database of 1,000 or more, you know, I think that will give you a fantastic pipeline over time, because this compounds. It's not just the first letter that's going to get you the results. Sorry, I'm just trying to turn off my screen.
No, don't worry about it.
Lost the button for where it's gone, I'm afraid.
No, don't worry about that.
Put this back on.
Absolutely. So.
There we go. It's come back. There we go. Stop share. Yeah. So I think, yeah, just coming back to my point about, for instance, this gentleman who I bought this site from, he didn't respond to the first letter or the second letter, or in fact the third letter. It was only, I think, when I did an annual follow-up, so it was probably the 4th letter I sent him. It was about 18 months after I sent him the first letter that I actually got a response from him. So it's very much about sort of building the pipeline and building the system, rather than just sending some letters out and expecting loads of leads. It's really
the system, 100%. Like, as I mentioned to you, we got the first letter within a week of the last one. Then we got another email from another commercial landlord saying, we're not looking to sell right now, but if we do in the future, we'll come back to you. So we are getting more responses. Hopefully, Wasim, that answers your question, but feel free to ask further questions. And Shivani has also asked a question to both of us, actually, and I'll let you go first on that one. Can you elaborate on your utility costs? What did you expect and what did you end up paying at the end?
So do you want to go for that first? Or
no, you go for it first, because this is your forte.
Okay, yes, sorry. So I'd have to go back to my numbers, but at the top of my head, I think we paid best part of 20,000 to have the sewer connection made, because that went right.
For these 2 houses?
Yes, yeah.
Because you said the connection was across the road, so you needed a whole new pipe of the sewer pipe across the road.
And it was quite deep as well, which obviously has a bearing on the cost. So that was a bit of a shocker. The electricity, I think, was best part of 10,000. Water and gas much more reasonable. I think the gas was probably sort of 2,000 around, and then the water probably about 2,500, 3,000.
But normally, I mean, I know on this one you obviously ended up paying more on the sewer, but normally it's roughly, like the way I look at it is, for my Reading 8 flats, I think I averaged it at about 3,000 per flat.
Yeah, okay.
I paid about 1,000, maybe just over, for gas, electric and water connection. So that's what I've taken as an average on my appraisals as well now, which are about 3 to 3.5K per flat. Saying that, you get economies of scale, Shivani. So on my Bracknell house, there was only 1 extra connection needed, because obviously you had the existing house with their own existing connection. You needed an extra water, gas and electric. We paid $2,000 each, 2 for water, 2 for gas and 2 for electric. So with the Reading one, because there were 8, you had economies of scale, and it ended up being about 1,000, whereas it was almost double. Well, and I think that prices have gone up. So I'd say if you factor in about 1,500 for each of the utilities, if you know there's mains right on the road in front of your land, Otherwise, if you've got to pick it up from somewhere else, then it's a different ball game, right?
It can be an open checkbook, can't it? Unfortunately, as we know the site we're starting early next year, it's actually on a private road, so we've got to come down about 100 metres of road to connect to the public sewer, which is obviously going to cost an awful lot of money. So it's definitely worth being aware that of where your utilities are, particularly sewers. They tend to be the difficult ones because you're going to get.
Can I suggest something as well, Shivani? Because what we've started to do now on our sites, we do ground scans. So Shivani, you can speak to Romy about this separately on a call, but basically we've started doing ground scans, which don't cost a lot. It's only a few hundreds, and they tell you where the utilities are on the street. So it'll save you a lot of money in the future if you just do this. And then you have loads of these consultants, engineers who do this ground scans. And then I think you do topographic surveys as well. I'm not sure if the topographic shows the utility points, but I know the ground scans do. And they only cost, I think, £200-300. So I'd say if you're concerned about that and if you're not quite sure, then get those scans done and de-risk your costs on the utility side. But again, it's a massive, it could be a risk if you don't have it in front of your house, basically.
And on the point about topos, Manny, if you get your surveyor to lift the covers on the manholes and check the invert levels, that can be very helpful information to have for when you need to work out where the drainage is going.
So did you check it on this side? You already knew your cost, so you factored in your costs before you started the build?
Yeah, we did factor in before we started the build. What we didn't do is factor it in when we agreed to purchase the site. So, that was a learning point, to be honest.
I mean, you know what? I'm sure there is no project that goes through without you saying, well, that was easy. And, it just sails through. It never happens, and you always have some nasty surprises. So, Shivani, hopefully that's helped you with your question. So yeah, Shivani just said a big thank you, great tip. And Wasim said a thank you as well. So guys, if you have any further questions, actually, Shivani's got another point. You can contact network provider. They will give you a quote for the site. They take ages. I think she means for these ground scan. Is that what you mean, Shivani, for the ground scan, the quote, or what is that? So I'll wait for her to answer that.
From the utility providers, I think the only one that actually charges you up front is the water board. So you can get indications of cost quite early on, which is a good thing.
They do give you the quotes, don't they? Yes, I remember my architect did that on my Reading project, and we knew upfront what the costs were before we went into the build.
Yeah, which is a good idea to understand how your services are getting in, because they can have a big bearing on cost.
Absolutely. Well, guys, 25 days for utilities, she's saying, for quotes, I think. Oh, that's the backlog on quotes, 25 days.
Right.
What you can do, Shivani, I'll introduce you to someone we've been working with who are an intermediary. They call Crown Energy, actually. And our builders, our contractors on the last two projects have been liaising with them. So basically, they are intermediary and who liaise directly with the electric and gas providers. And you can get working with them much more quicker. So because they do bulk inquiries and they obviously have, a way in with these utility companies. So Crown Energy, I'm going to put their name in. And if you need a contact in there, just drop me an email, Shivani, and I'll send you the contact details for our Bracknell project. We did that, and now we're doing that on the Surbiton one as well. So hopefully, guys, that's really helped you, given us a bit of flavor of this particular deal that David has been through, again, using the direct to vendor. So for those of you, we're just going to end with saying we're running a site finding course on Friday, the 8th of January. It's a one-off course, exclusively, possibly never to be repeated. We'll decide that near the time, obviously. But I think as of now, David and I are going to be very, very busy on multiple projects in the new year. So not sure if it's going to be repeated. It's a one-day course, starts off at 9:30 till 4. It's a full-on day of content. And we're going to teach you to create a system, as David said. It's not just one-off letters that you do, and that's not going to get you anywhere. But in your property business, whether you're an investor, a HMO landlord looking to expand and buy more HMOs without the external competition, just teaching you a system around the direct to vendor marketing. And we've proven, David's proven, I'm in the process of actually implementing that, and I'm running the system in my business now, and we're getting some responses. as a proven method. It's tried and tested, and it's really, yes, it requires patience, it requires perseverance. But once that system is in flow, you can sort of outsource it to a third party, to a virtual assistant, and obviously stay on top of it, but also get them to do some of the work, obviously, because it is time consuming, as we know, but it's well worth it.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great system. I think, there's the three real key benefits that we've talked about before, Manny, but, you really sort of take out a lot of the competition. You were talking earlier about competing with 20 other people over the asking price. You do take out a lot of the competition. Secondly, you can massively increase your, return on investment in terms of that cash on cash, just because you're deploying your money for less time, because which comes on to the third point, you can get all your ducks in a row. By buying this way, you can be absolutely ready. You can do all your research. As I discovered my cost on this one, I'll be doing it, on the next one. I have done it on the next one, in terms of, getting all your utility quotes ready. You go into the project really prepared. So you get all your ducks in a row, which is best way to, make development smooth.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've had some really good live audiences. Guys, thank you so much for all your questions and supporting us through this. And we will be back next Thursday, same time, 10:30, live again with deal number 3. But in the meantime, if you've got any other questions about the deal, anything about property, or just about the site finding course next year, then email me, manny@mannychopra.com. And David is david@pntproperty.co.uk.
That's right. Yeah, David at PNT, which is Papa November Tango, property, all one word, .co.uk.
Fantastic, guys. Thank you so much, and hope you guys got some value and enjoyed that, because I think I did.
Brilliant.